Billy the Kid was just 21 when he died, but he'd already been linked to 9 murders, sparked the bloodiest range war in the American West, and escaped from jail multiple times. His story isn't just about an outlaw, it's about how a teenager became a legend that still captivates us 140 years later. You know what's fascinating? He wasn't even born Billy the Kid. He started life as Henry McCarty in New York City, became William H. Bonney, and only earned his famous nickname because of his youth and slight build. And his transformation from petty thief to notorious outlaw happened incredibly fast. After his mother died when he was 14, it took less than 2 years before he committed his first crime, stealing food just to survive. That's what makes his story so compelling. He started out as basically a homeless teenager stealing to eat, and somehow ended up at the center of one of the biggest power struggles in New Mexico territory. The Lincoln County War really changed everything for him. When John Tunstall hired him as a ranch hand, it probably seemed like his chance at a legitimate life. Instead, it pulled him into this massive conflict between competing business interests. Well, what's often overlooked is how much corruption played into all of this. The Murphy-Dolan faction basically had a monopoly on everything in Lincoln County. The beef contracts with Fort Stanton, the main store in town. They weren't about to let some English newcomer like Tunstall challenge their power. And when they murdered Tunstall in cold blood, shooting him in the chest, and then putting another bullet in his head while he was down, that's what really set Billy on his path to becoming an outlaw. He joined the regulators seeking revenge for Tunstall's death. You know what's interesting about the regulators? They actually started out as a legally deputized posse. They had warrants to arrest Tunstall's killers. It wasn't until later that things spiraled out of control. That's right. And speaking of things spiraling, let's talk about the famous Battle of Lincoln in 1878. Billy and the other regulators were holed up in Alexander McSween's house for 3 days while their enemies literally tried to smoke them out. The whole thing reached this incredible climax when they set the house on fire. Billy managed to escape in the chaos, but McSween wasn't so lucky. He was shot down in the street. Here's something that really shows how complex Billy's character was. Even while he was this notorious outlaw, he had this incredible charm about him. When he was captured and interviewed in jail, he told a reporter, "What's the use of looking on the gloomy side of everything? The laugh's on me this time." That kind of attitude probably helped him make so many friends and supporters. Even when he was being hunted, there were always people willing to hide him or help him out. And let's talk about his relationship with Governor Lew Wallace, the same man who wrote Ben-Hur. Wallace actually offered Billy a pardon in exchange for testimony about a murder he'd witnessed. Billy kept his end of the deal, but Wallace never followed through. That betrayal really seems to have been a turning point. After that, Billy seemed to give up on any chance of going straight, though he still maintained he never killed anyone who didn't try to kill him first. His escapes from custody were legendary. The most famous one was from Lincoln County Jail, where he was being held before his scheduled execution. He somehow managed to get his hands free, grabbed a gun, and killed both his guards. And what's really incredible about that escape is that he was still in leg irons when he shot Deputy Bell and Deputy Ollinger. He had to use an axe to finally get the shackles off before he could ride away. You know what's fascinating? We only have one confirmed photograph of Billy the Kid, that famous Pharaoh-type that sold for $2.3 million in 2011. For years, people thought he was left-handed because of that photo, but it turns out the image was just reversed. That's right, and now there's this whole controversy about a second photo that supposedly shows him playing croquet. Some experts say it's him, others say it's not. It just shows how much mystery still surrounds his story. His final confrontation with Pat Garrett is still debated too. The official version is that Garrett shot him when he entered Pete Maxwell's darkened bedroom, but there have been so many alternative theories over the years. Well, that's part of what keeps his legend alive, isn't it? The mysteries, the unanswered questions, the way his story touches on these universal themes of justice and betrayal. And think about this. In just 21 years of life, he managed to become such a powerful symbol of the American West that we're still telling his story today. More than 50 movies have been made about him, countless books written. That's what makes his story so enduring. It's not just about the gunfights and the escapes. It's It's about this young person caught up in these massive forces of change as the Old West was disappearing. And maybe that's really what keeps drawing us back to his story. It's not just about whether he was a cold-blooded killer or a product of his times. It's about how circumstances and choices can shape a person's destiny, and how thin the line can be between justice and revenge, between right and wrong. In many ways, Billy the Kid's story is as relevant today as it was 140 years ago. You know, in the end, maybe that's his real legacy. Not the notches on his gun or the crimes he committed, but the way his story continues to make us think about these bigger questions of morality and justice. Want more cowboy-related content? Subscribe to Cowboy Chronicles YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.